Thanks everyone for being here. It's great to have you in the audience. A little bow.
It's very German of me. We're kind of late, so.
Yeah, sorry. Everyone did file in and we were just chatting and forgot to actually walk in the room, so good start. I'm Hannah Bowler. I'm a reporter here at Digital Frontier, and I'm joined by the lovely Kea, who is Senior Manager for Global Experiential and Culture Marketing at Jägermeister.
Quite a difficult job title. So
Yeah.
people are like, what the fuck? Where do you work? What do you do? So I work at Jägermeister, the spirits company, in the cultural marketing department. And I work in the global team, so I'm responsible for 150 markets at this point.
150 markets is
obviously not insane. Like I don't do everything with them, but for the cultural marketing of them and kind of giving some guidance, some strategy, that's basically our role.
Amazing. And as somebody who has got the word culture physically in their job title,
which I had to fight for.
It'd be great to actually understand like what you think cultural marketing even is as a base point from your perspective, having it in your having campaigned for it in your job title. Yeah, what does it mean?
We were just chatting about it because I was telling you that I'm actually not really great at explaining my job, but and I think it's a lot of buzzwords that are always thrown together when you talk about culture, and even my job title has, I think, 4 buzzwords in it already. Cultural marketing for us definitely means like how we interact with the community close to our brand, how we show up for them, and how we make sure that we nurture those communities and make sure that we have them close to the brand in the future as well. And of course, like how do we stay relevant as a brand as well, which I guess is the topic of discussion today as well. So that's the broadest sphere of cultural marketing, but generally I think it should always have the focus of communities and the people who are actually driving culture, which I don't think we as a brand are, but it's more the people in nightlife out there who are actually defining what that means.
And from your perspective, because cultural marketing is becoming a buzzword, this is why we're all sort of brought this all together. Why do you think that this topic is having such a big moment, and that's what every brand wants to talk about, every agency wants to talk about? Where is that kind of coming from your end?
Yeah, good for me. I'm invited to a lot of lovely panels, which I like. But no, I think it's this human need for understanding things and for wanting to understand things, which is good. I think we should all be curious and try to understand certain things in life. But especially with culture, trying to intellectualize it can also sometimes make it a bit difficult to really define what it means. We want to know what culture means and what it stands for, but it's something that, again, happens basically on the streets and not in the boardroom. So it's not like, you can say, oh, this is culture and this is not culture. It's really defined by the people who are living at this moment or who influence us. And we as a brand are just trying to maybe also benefit from that and take something away from it while hopefully not ruining it, which does happen sometimes.
Well, like intellectualizing culture is quite problematic, right? Because the point of culture is like, you're in the moment, you're experiencing it as a person experiencing it. You want it to feel like natural and not like people are sitting in a boardroom with graphs.
Exactly, that is also the difficulty in also the job that I do. You have this kind of, we want to do this and this. It sounds really cool. It seems like we're going to be the brand that is in the moment, that is hyped, and let's do that one. And then you think you have this amazing idea, and you show up at events or you show up in a partnership and something, and it doesn't resonate with your consumer or with the community at all. And that's where it goes wrong then. And ideally, I think that's why I always say, okay, you should see where can we naturally show up? Where can we be involved? So for example, Jägermeister, nightlife, that makes sense. I don't know, if you have a different brand, different product, and think around how can we show up in that sphere that is actually relevant to our community and not do something that feels unnatural. My favorite example, and we spoke about this before, is KFC at Ultra Festival.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
This is, yeah. Don't want to name names, but
yeah, sorry.
You explain. You explain.
But if anyone wants to hear my opinion about it, we can chat about it later.
Oh no, let's hear it. It's a good example of a brand showing up, perhaps like in a place that it shouldn't have been, but you can spin it in a way that then connects back to.
Yeah, you can learn something from it. That I think is the takeaway. You can obviously, and that's what you should always do. Try to learn something from it. So I'm sure that my colleagues at KFC were like, this is an amazing opportunity for us, and we want to be involved with music, and music is where our target audience probably is. So people go to festivals, people listen to music, and they want to have KFC after or during that time. So why don't we just go to Ultra Festival, and why don't we just go on stage with our mascot? And while that sounds maybe like a really cool idea in the boardroom, showing up at a music festival where they're thriving to have a slot on stage, and it's really someone's dream to play at that festival, and then just paying a lot of money to play 15 seconds basically in a costume doesn't make a lot of sense, and was really not well received by the audience. And yeah, I hope they learn from it, but yeah.
Well, going back to that then, is like, how do you set up the guardrails as a brand to understand like where you will play and where you will not play, and how you kind of like then work out, okay, like if I'm a product and I'm in this space, I have to stick to this space, but over here they're doing some really cool stuff and I want to be there, but like, how do you protect that in a way?
I think it also goes hand in hand with a lot of lobbying that you have to do in your corporation. So you have to make sure that people understand what cultural marketing means and what our job is, so that it's really not something that you can just plug in and it's an extension of a campaign or something.
How easy is that to lobby?
Very much depends on how the senior level looks like, I guess. So I have to be honest, at Jägermeister, I think, obviously I have to say this, we are doing cool things, but our leadership is is mostly in the 50s and white. So explaining to them why something is relevant for a consumer or why we shouldn't do something can also be, they just look at you and like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? What is this raving? I don't know.
What is dance music?
Why is it relevant for a consumer? I'm like, yeah, shop brand, nightlife, raving, makes sense. But yeah, it's just continuously showing up and explaining to people. We also can't just as you said, there's something cool happening, and we can't just be like, oh yeah, let's do that one, because it's not. There's always a human factor in these things, and you always have to have a relationship to the people that you're working with. I think that's, for me, the most important thing in our partnerships, that you talk to the people first and you really hear what they want to achieve with it, what is important to them, because they also have to make sure they stick to their values and they stick to what is important to maybe the collective or the brand that you're working with. Or, yeah, so I think it's kind of having a little bit of a focus on what makes sense to your place basically in culture.
Do you have any sort of examples of where you've maybe got that a little bit wrong, where you've been like, this is so cool, and you've just gone down that line, and then you've not really paid attention to anything else, and then you're like, whoa, that did not land well? Yeah,
millions of, not millions, but we have a lot of examples, and it's also, you have to make your mistakes, and you have to learn from it, and you can't always do everything right. But I think for me, and that was actually the one where I joined the company, I joined as an intern, and we were just in COVID 2020, and I'm working for the purpose marketing especially, so kind of our social impact as a brand and how we save nightlife. And the brand had this idea, okay, obviously nightlife is really down at the moment, nothing is happening, how can we kind of show up for nightlife? And they thought, why don't we just spend millions on a really, really famous artist, Post Malone, who also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but who is also a little bit of a marketing whore, who really just partners with everyone.
That's the buzzword from the session, Post Malone marketing whore.
No, but I mean, look at his Instagram. He partners with anything and everything, Crocs, Pepsi, everything. And we just thought, okay, let's give him a lot of money, and he can go through a town that is kind of empty and nothing is happening, and then people start showing up again because, hopefully COVID is over at some point. And of course, there was an initiative behind it where money went back to saving, to giving back to artists in nightlife, which is amazing. But I think the whole pizzazz in the front of it was Post Malone is not related to our brand at all. Is not, to me, still not a good brand fit. Not relevant anywhere outside the US. Let's be honest. Okay, now I'm really being mean. But, I love him as a person, but yeah. That was probably my example, because I was also part of that. There's probably other examples where I wasn't part of in the company, but that was my joining moment.
I like that. Thanks, Post Malone, for the last few minutes.
Love you.
Love you, Post Malone. One thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's quite big for what we're trying to discuss here as cultural capital, is like, how do you integrate culture marketing, like even before marketing, like into the business? And so it's not really considered like, oh, we've got this sort of campaign, and at the end of it we're like, okay, well, there's the ad spend for social, here's it for digital, here's it for podcasting, here's it for culture. How do we make sure it's like embedded from way before then, before the brief?
I think it's also being honest. I think you have to have a certain degree of freedom, and that probably doesn't happen in a lot of companies, where you can really say, okay, we get our budget and we can decide a little bit what we want to do with it, and define from the beginning of the financial year how we want to spend it. But we also have certain freedom in saying like, okay, we need to support this collective, or we need to do this because it's important to us as a brand and important to what we're trying to achieve. And it generally is also, again, going back to making people understand it's not an outcome, it's an income. Like, it's something that you, or like an input. It's something that you put in and that you have to have in mind in the beginning when you plan a certain campaign. You have to see, is there a fit where we can partner up with a community that makes sense? Can we extend it somehow? That obviously is a good thought. But if there's not, then also don't try to force it. So I think that's, but it definitely boils down to really having a certain degree of freedom as well, because I don't think if you obviously have to have KPIs, you need to deliver on those, but you also need to have a little bit of a quantitative approach as well. It's kind of the gut feeling a little bit.
Yeah, and picking at that freedom part a little bit more, like, how do you sort of get that from leadership? I don't know if that sounds silly, but like, you know, how does that sort of happen within a business if it's not naturally there? Like, how do you sort of lobby for freedom?
I honestly think it's also an honest conversation to have, to say, okay, why do we exist as a company or as a brand? What do we stand for, and what is important to us? And I think every company, if you go into their corporate social responsibility or something, they have brand values and they have something that they want to stand for. And then it is the job, though, to really see how can we make that happen? How can we make sure that we are part of a certain community, or how we show up for a consumer or something like that. And I'm pretty proud that we actually looked at that and saw, okay, for us, we want to be the #1 partner in nightlife, for example. How do we make that happen? And it's not something that you can define at the beginning of every year anew. You have to have it in the back of your mind the entire business strategy through. But again, it's also a lot of meetings in boardrooms and explaining why it's important, showing why our campaigns or our projects work, and why we have why we should have the level of trust that we have. So again, I have a lot of really fun conversations about what certain things mean, and what is this trend, and why can't we just do that, and why don't we just do a bottle in, I don't know, pink because it's Pride? Let's do it. So yeah, those are the kind of conversations that you have to have.
How linked is culture marketing to like purpose marketing, if that makes sense? Like, because what you're talking about feels a little bit like almost going back to like ESG stuff, and like being in a conversation that's about our mission, our purpose.
You are a bit unlucky, because that's what I do mostly in my daily work. That's why I keep going back to it a little bit. But generally, obviously, we have we have a huge interest in music as well. So that's how we kind of see our cultural marketing, in terms of we are a brand that is connected to music, but still we always want to make sure that we show up for those communities that we support, that we say, okay, we want to book artists that are maybe in the local community. We want to give them a fair pay. We don't want to be a brand that rips people off, and we want to give fair opportunities. So for me, that really goes hand in hand. Even though I'm responsible for the purpose marketing, I still talk to my colleagues who do the music marketing, or who, I don't know, are in partnerships more than I am, to really say, okay, are we really hitting those values that we signed up for, basically? So that's how it goes hand in hand for me a little bit.
Is grassroots also then a part of that? I don't know, like I always feel like there's like the big industry, and then there's like going a little bit lower in terms of like giving back to the community, and when there's sort of this mix of culture, like you don't ever want to, I don't know, again, like as a consumer of culture, I don't want to feel like a brand is like cashing in on me and my cultural experience. So like, I don't know, how do you balance that?
Yeah, not easy, but maybe asking you in that sense, what has been a good initiative or a good kind of, where was a good thing where you showed up and you were like, oh, this is a nice integration, the brand did a good job, or something where you were like, wow, that's blown me away and that felt natural in a way? Sorry, now I'm asking the questions here.
It's good. I go to a lot of these events, to be fair. I'm probably the best person to ask. There was, like, I shut down now, but there was House of Vans, which was under the tunnels in Waterloo, and they used to put on gigs for free. I've seen, like, Loyal Kana, Metallica,
Cool.
Frank Turner, free.
Oh.
So I feel like that, where you're like, that is just a totally free experience, and you go down and like that is, yeah. I mean, it's not in your face. They're not marketing at me. Probably a good example.
I was gonna say,
I like when stuff is free.
Yeah, you're
and a brand is just like putting something on for me, and I'm getting this.
I think that's essentially a good summary of what it should be. You know, you should be honest with yourself as a brand and be like, okay, we can afford to have this for free for our consumer. We can afford to be taking a step back and be a little bit humble as well. So I always like to say it should be the enabler of things, but we shouldn't be at the forefront. So you shouldn't walk into a thing and it should just be plastered logos everywhere, and you can't even, you know, get away from that brand. And you should take something away from that evening or from the event where you say, wow, that's really cool that they made that happen for us to take part in, and that is where the association again makes a lot of sense. So I think that's a perfect example. And we also always try to, can we afford to do it for free? Because we know that people are struggling with income, struggling with having income for cultural things. So that's exactly what it should be.
Yeah. And actually, I went to a South by Southwest event yesterday. There was, it was actually with Purcell, Dirt is Good. And they were doing, part of their Arsenal sponsorship was with, so firstly, the marketing director is Brazilian. So she basically, in her home country, in her small town, they have Arsenal themed football teams where they're basically ripping off logos. And they have like, all of these teams. I think there's about 8 in Brazil, and she was a big fan of one of them. And because she's got this sponsorship with Arsenal, they've basically like taken Arsenal over there and made like a mini tournament, and they have flown the winners of these fake Arsenal teams that are basically in the favelas all the way to Arsenal Stadium to play. And they have got them all passports. I mean, like the money that goes into it is crazy, but you think like some guy from the favela playing football and has suddenly got a passport, is in London playing for Arsenal. I was like, but it felt, because she has this connection, like she's seen it naturally, it felt like a nice fit. It wasn't like, and even the attention to detail, like in the activation, there's like chairs that you have in the Brazilian bar. And she was like, I went over backwards to get those chairs because this has to feel like authentic, a Brazilian bar. And I was like, I saw it all come together. It was quite interesting to have that one person who was like, I'm going to make this a thing.
And I think I love that involves that also asking the people who are actually doing the thing in Brazil and asking them like, how do you want this to happen? How do you want it to look when we're over in the UK? And obviously bringing them over is amazing as well. You can't just go there and be like, oh, this looks cool. Let's take that back to the UK.
Let's just take the content and plaster it on an ad.
We do something similar where we have a student program and we fly people who are in that student program over to Wolfenbüttel, where Jägermeister is made, so tiny town in Germany. And it's so lovely seeing people from Kenya, from Brazil again, also from Colombia, and they also have to get their passport for this. And then they come over and they're like blown away by being in this town where I sometimes get snotty about like, oh, I don't want to be in this village. But it's so cool seeing that. And to be honest, we have the money to do that. We have to actually influence people and have them have a great experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like if, as a brand, if you've got that much money, you can't feel like you're skimming off the top of people's communities and people's culture. Like, if you're not giving back, it's just a bit, like, just see you straight through it, right?
It seems very obvious that shouldn't be a thing, but I feel like it happens a lot. And obviously, we also do mistakes in that sense. But yeah, again, it should feel like you should be giving something back. And I think an important point is the long-term commitment. It's also about when you do something with a community or a project partner, that it's not a one-time thing. And even if it's not maybe the next year, it's the same or something, you still should try to stick close to them and see if they need support. And we have events that we do all over the world with amazing artists, and we always say, if you have another project that you're working on and you want support, maybe we can't fund the whole thing, but maybe we can help you. The least we can do is always give product. We can always give connections. Those things, that's just what brands have, and I think they should be really generous with it.
Just going back to that longevity part, like, I'm just thinking, like, how do you keep those relationships going, even if, like, leadership changes, or you've got a CMO turn around to you and they say, there's no money for this anymore. Like, how do you then sort of keep things going long term when you're sort of getting different sea changes? And I don't know, how do you protect it for the long term?
Probably not the answer you want to hear, but we are, I think for us it's nice because we're a family-owned company, so you have the family in the back that they're really into, like, they want to make sure that we are authentic to our roots and that we stay close to the communities, and that we also really put our money where our mouth is. So that's kind of what I'm measured on. And my goals, I have certain, like, if I say something at the beginning of the year, I have to have it checked off in terms of, if I say I'm going to support those people, I also have to do it. And they always really lobby for us even doing more and investing more into cultural marketing and more into, especially obviously the purpose part of that thing, of that side. But I also think that you have to fight for it as a team as well. So we always kind of protect our space a little bit as well. So it's a lot of internal marketing as well. We have to write internet articles. We have to invite our colleagues who are also, they think I have the best job in the world, which probably I have a really cool job, but it's also, I do work. It's not like I only do these things. And then you have to make them understand that we're doing something of value for the company. And it's not just the fun part where you travel around, you go to parties, but it's literally something where you make connections, you build relationships, and those relationships will pay off also in commercial value at some point.
Well, yeah, it couldn't be a marketing panel without touching on measurement. So thank you for teeing that one up.
Exactly, there's
because that is like a big sort of part of trying to make culture marketing work, is like proving that it works, because it's not at all measured in the same way. And like how you sort of look at that, like, and how does Jägermeister in particular think about measuring your ROI on an event or in a partnership with a nightclub?
Again, probably not it's not really a clear answer to that one as well, but I think it's really the multitude of KPIs that we have, or of metrics that we use. It's really obviously how many people did attend an event, was it worth it in the end? So did the invest really, did it make sense? Do people, like, is the product placement in place? So we don't need to have, again, we don't need to have logos all over the place, but we always have to have the product at the bar, so that if someone wants to go and have a drink, it needs to be there, it needs to be ice cold. So those are the things that are just kind of hygiene factors, of course. And then, of course, in terms of the investment that we do, we also try to, like, if we invest into, for example, artists or something, we would ask them first if they have another project coming up and we need someone to help us with, I don't know, the creative around or something. They would get paid for it again, but we first want to ask them before we ask someone like an agency or something, because mostly we have those people already in our network. And that's also a KPI that we're measured on, kind of that sounds terrible if I say reuse of artists, but you know what I mean. Like, it's
like the creative connections that you've made.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
kind of, it's and obviously we also have a certain roster, like how which is actually what you mentioned in the beginning as well, kind of the diametral difference between grassroots and big corporations, basically. So we don't just do that to be amazing people because we want to support young artists. Of course, that should be the main thing, but also we do that because we hope that it will pay off at some point and that they will become big artists. So we have really close relationships to amazing, really big artists at this point that started by us just sending them a bottle of Jaeger for their first gig or something. And we do that so that at some point we can benefit from it.
That's actually so funny. My boyfriend's friend is a musician, and he was showing me last night, because I was like, talking about the panel, and he was like, oh, my friend is a musician and he just got sent a box of Jaeger and they did like an unboxing video in Colombia, and I was like, wow, this is really fun. And it was literally last night. I was like, oh, there you go.
So it's also about that, you know, we still want to support them, and it's not just product that we send out. We also, if someone comes to us and says, hey, I need support hiring this venue, we will also help you, but we do expect that you keep kind of close to us, and I just want to be transparent that that's obviously, we don't just give money away for free, I guess. So
good disclaimer. Yeah, the box had Jägermeister, but it also had like graffiti pens and incense. And I was like, What's the nice box? All Jaeger themed.
It's our sensory voyage box.
Yeah.
So, honorable mention to my colleagues who sent that out. It also had a disposable camera, which is really cool. Actually.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm glad you know the exact one I'm talking about.
Yeah, their office is next to mine, so I know. I helped packing it, so I do work.
Another disclaimer from the session. Well, you've kind of teased on this, but I wanted to chat to you because 150 markets. How do you navigate that? Because like when I was thinking of Jägermeister, my top memory or like thought is like I'm going to show that I go skiing, which is sorry, but like an après ski environment. It's like post ski, and there's like some Euro trash on the bar, and there's like an ice cold tap.
Yeah.
And that's my experience of Jägermeister. But how does then that translate where there's places where there's no snow? How do you sort of look at each territory? Because I assume the culture is different in each 150 markets.
Yes, it definitely is. And that's one difficulty of the job is being, okay, we have the responsibility of being the strategic angle, I guess, or anchor for 150 markets. And we want to make sure that we do initiatives that are relevant for a lot of markets, but we'll never hit that point where it's relevant for all the markets. And you also have to give them their freedom, because I don't know what's going on in Kenya at the moment. I don't know what's going on in Colombia, besides your friend getting a cool seating box. But yeah, so we kind of try to give them some pointers in terms of, okay, we want to focus on grassroots because X, Y. We want to focus on longevity of our projects because X, Y. Because in those markets, sometimes they only have one brand manager and he needs to do everything. Like we have a full team of like social media, of normal marketing, of blah, 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 all these things. I'm in the team, but they only have one person, and that one person needs to understand why it's important to have these certain kind of pillars in the project. And that's basically my role, explaining to them, okay, if you do this project and you think it's worth investing into that community, great, but make sure you understand that this is going to be a long-term thing, and you also you can't change your perspective completely next year, kind of. You have to have a certain level of commitment. And consistency, exactly. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. But I think that's probably one of the more important points on that. But again, I don't understand sometimes. In South Korea, we have the student project I was just talking about. They still look more into like using it as a CV booster. So they work for Jägermeister and they put it on their CV, and they don't even want to get paid for it. Whereas in the UK, they just want to get wasted, basically. And maybe get some money from it, but it's very different. We obviously, it's a rich history that we have as well with missteps in a way, or it wasn't a misstep at that point, but we were really sexual in our advertising or in our promotions as well. So we had something called Jägerettes, really innovative concept where people are like very skimmy, is how you say in English, like very not much dressed women would go into the bar and kind of give Jägermeister out and make a exactly. So that was at that point very innovative. No other brands were doing it, and obviously if someone is dressed really amazingly, has a good body, you're more inclined to maybe like, oh yeah, I do want to have a shot with her. But we don't do that anymore. Like it's a guidance from the back. We don't do that anymore. And then you see presentations coming in from certain markets, and they have those pictures. Like they still do it, and you're like, oh, now I have to be the police and tell them that we don't do it anymore. But maybe it is relevant for them. So I think you have to have a bit of empathy as well.
Yeah, and respect for what they're bringing into you.
Exactly. I rather listen first, and then I don't want to be the police. And most of the time, sometimes I have to be, but yeah.
Is it difficult though when you're like from like the German perspective that it's all about dance culture and clubs and raves, like? But then what is that experience like in each, I'm just intrigued in terms of like when you're setting the agenda for the types of places that you're going to be in, and if that doesn't then translate?
I think that, again, it's most of where we show up is also different from on-trade. So we have a lot of focus on on-trade in terms of that's not really where my responsibility lies. I don't know why we are in certain bars and we aren't in others. When it comes to more cultural environments and communities, I think that's where we really give the guidance and we really say, okay, are you sure that this is, there are certain pointers that they have to hit, and then that they also fit with our brand values as well. We don't want to work with someone who's not a nice person, basically, and that's where we really come in and say, okay, we don't have to sign it off technically, but we do want to make sure that that's above board, basically. And there are things like you mentioned, trends that are really global, like après-ski. We have a chief of après-ski. I kid you not. Yes, we do.
Like in the job title.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we just make sure that when you go, it doesn't matter if you go skiing in the French Alps or if you go skiing in Switzerland, Jägermeister will be there and Jägermeister will be the same. That's also, I guess, something we take from other brands like Coca-Cola. Our distribution is similar to them, and we just want to make sure, even if the brand might have a different standpoint in different countries, that when you drink it, it's always the same.
I was thinking of actually just asking you for like your thoughts on other brands that you see doing this stuff really well. I was going to say shit, but I didn't mean to. Stuff really well.
Oh, okay. Good question. There are so many really good brands out there doing cool stuff.
What's on your radar? Like if you were going to go to a panel and listen to...
I have one that I just saw yesterday, and that's a little bit close to my heart. Maybe I'm really basic, but I do like High Snobiety, and I think they're doing really cool stuff. And they just teamed up with Lego, so they're doing a Lego play day thing at their store, and I think that's really cool. Kind of, it's generally probably not the brand fit from Lego and High Snobiety, but getting people who think they're the coolest shit and they are so amazing and they dress so nicely, getting them into the store and playing with Lego, I think that's a really cool thing. So that's one that I saw that I loved. What are other brands doing? I'm just, again, can tell my boss that I'm just so focused on my job that I don't really look left and right what other brands are doing. No, there are so many examples, I probably can't even think of another one. But that one I really loved and I just saw it yesterday. So I'm excited to go there. I'm going to go.
I loved Lego as well. So anything they do, I'm like, that just worked really well. Well done. You've kind of rushed through all my answers. Well, I haven't. I actually got given a time prompt, so I can wrap up. But I was just going to ask, if you had sort of a word of wisdom from your experience to kind of impart to any brands or agencies in the room if they're trying to get this right, because it can also, there's a line. So I'd love to just know your 10 cents on, how to get this stuff on the right side and so it lands well.
Yeah, obviously I haven't, in German you would say, I haven't eaten wisdom with a spoon, so it's the German saying you can take home. Ich habe die Wahrheit nicht mit Löffeln gefressen. But yeah, so what I would say from my perspective, what I learned from other amazing people in this area is definitely really look at it as an input and not just an output. So that I think is a major one. So really make sure that you have it in mind when you plan your business strategy. If you want to focus on cultural marketing, make sure there is an authentic fit. Does it fit to my product? Does it fit to my brand? And the longevity. So really looking at it holistically and just you're gonna make mistakes. Maybe also you're gonna team up or you're gonna partner up with something that isn't 2 years. It's not cool anymore. But you don't want to be the brand that was there for 1 year and then kind of parted ways. And I guess especially nowadays with people are really quick to judge you as well. So make sure that you are staying true to what you decided you want to do. I think those 3 things I would say probably most.
Yeah, I mean the longevity piece is good because it's this space is probably so tempting to just jump on a trend and just follow it in the moment and then with no real thought further down the line, or it's just you see it over there and you're like, yeah, cool, let's jump on that.
Ooh, I do have one other thing. I think it's also important that we stick true to a little bit to our gut feeling and I guess there's always a little bit of human factor in these things as well. If I think I talk to someone and I love what they're doing and they're amazing people and I think it's a really, really good fit for the brand, I'm obviously the one who's going to make that decision in the end and you have to argue it, you have to argue for it in boardrooms and stuff, but still, I think you can't disregard the kind of human factor in this, and which is also something I like, especially in terms of tech being even more important nowadays, which is great, and it has its existence. It has its right to exist. But I also think that we shouldn't forget, especially in cultural marketing, that is about humans. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So you're looking at the data here, but also you're just seeing this. You've got a gut feeling, and you just get good vibes from the person that you're working with, and you're like, yeah, I love it. Okay, it's a great way to end. I don't know if we have time for questions. We do. I'm just looking to. Does anyone have any questions? I see one in the front.
Could you kind of highlight how do you measure cultural to commercial KPIs?
Yeah, I think that's always the biggest challenge, or not always, is the biggest challenge we have also in our company, is kind of brand selling versus brand building. So obviously we are a company that values commercial projects a lot. So there's a lot of budget put into promotions, into placements, into on-trade, off-trade, all these things. And then you have the part where we're supposed to kind of build the brand. And the lucky people in our boardroom have understood that even if I would ask a lot of you guys in the audience, it's do you like the product or do you like like the brand. You know, there's a difference, and not a lot of people, let's be honest, love the product. It's not like someone really says, "Oh, I love drinking Jägermeister," maybe, but mostly it is more that hopefully we stand for something as a brand, as like a lifestyle brand that you want to be. You want to go to the event, you want to be associated with going there. You want to have access to kind of the brand world that we are building. And I'm lucky that the boardroom has understood that, and they see it as an investment into the future. And we have this 2030 vision where we really move away a little bit from just focusing on the product and really going more into the brand building, as in the brand selling. But currently, compared to our marketing budgets, I'm not going to lie, we obviously have a huge marketing budget because we live from marketing, but compared to the overall budget, we really have a tiny portion of it. We do a lot of cultural marketing, but generally it's still quite small in comparison to our commercial budgets. Hope that answered it a little bit. It's not really easy to say.
I guess I wanted to ask you a question, like, are there any skills you think a really good culture marketer brand side would have, and what might they be, especially having to navigate quite a complex corporate ecosystem?
Yeah, I definitely think it is, as I mentioned before, it is definitely still focused on the human side of things. So you have to be someone who is interested in what people have to talk about. Like, you have to listen a lot. You have to be seeing what are opportunities for us to be ingesting ourselves naturally into that conversation. It is a lot of, conversations with people you also maybe don't want to talk to that much, lobbying inside the company, and making, being someone who is also comfortable in kind of being a foreign minister, I guess, for your own projects. So I think those are definitely two things you need to be comfortable with doing, and you have to be a good communicator. But I also think it's gut feeling and just social, like social intelligence. I don't know. It's something a little bit intangible as well. But to be honest, I don't know if I can answer that, because I was just put in that position, and I guess I'm good at it. But not easy for me to answer. Come from a different background a little bit, so.
Do we have any more questions?
I just wondered, with Gen Z's drinking habits changing, how is Jägermeister kind of adapting to what alcohol might mean or look like socially?
I think it goes a little bit back to the conversation around like us moving away from just the product more into the brand side of things. So we have we're active in a lot of different spheres. We have our own events, we have our own bookings. We do a lot of those things. We have an innovation department that is looking into how can we move away from just the core product. I'm sure it's going to be something around like CBD drinks or something like that. We're far away from that at this point, but I'm sure at some point, and the family who owns Jägermeister is open for that conversation, I think. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to go. Let's see if it really happens at some point. But I think they have also understood that we can't be a company that only thrives on one product anymore. So we have now, for example, Jägermeister Orange, which is, we were all really excited for it because we thought it's going to be less alcohol in it. But then it had only 2% less, which is not really a lot. But it tastes amazing, I'm not going to lie. It's really good. And so I think that the innovation department is also driving that change into, okay, we need something lighter, we need something more fresh, something that people can drink if they're not going on a heavy rave on Saturday evening, or Sunday morning, but something that also happens Thursday at 5 or something like that. So I think that's one of the things, but we are not closing our eyes from the fact that people are just drinking way less, and it's not going to go back the other way. So we have to adapt to that. Definitely, wellness is a big thing.
Actually, that's what you were saying as well. It's kind of like a big trend, more generally in terms of brands thinking of themselves as more of an experiences rather than just product.
Exactly.
And like that feels like that fits quite a lot. Brands at the moment are reshaping towards that.
Yeah, I think you have to offer something more than just a product, because there's a million different other digestives or different liquor brands, or even different. And every company has a competitor, and you need to find your way of how do I keep my consumer after they use the product, before they use the product. How can I make his experience with the product even better? So I think that falls into that.
Well, thank you so much, Kea. It was so great.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.